Okay, so what we're going to be talking about is avoiding unrealistic and romantic demands. Insisting that your demands and desires be fulfilled keeps you in a state of tension. We all have reasonable desires for security, cooperation, honesty, politeness, respect, and so on. But what happens when we don't get it? The notion that I must have what I want or something terrible will happen causes you to be upset when you don't meet your own impossible standards, or to be angry at others when they fail to do so. The demands can be temporary, a moment's rest, a decent meal, or long range for love, prestige, or wisdom. Either way, the frustration of those demands will keep you in temper, meaning temperamental response, unless you recognize that not getting everything you want in life is not usually awful, but it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or unpleasant. So that's what I'm saying. We all have this idea of what we've got to have, and when we don't have it, we're angry at Hashem, and we're angry at the people, and they could have helped us, and they should have helped us, and they did, and they know, and they listen to how people talk. And the idea is often we don't get what we want. And it's uncomfortable, but it's not awful. We learn to live with the discomfort, but it's not terrible and it's not catastrophic. So when you say, I must have what I want, you can either have fearful temper or angry temper. So fearful temper would be guilt. If I'm not perfect, I'm not worthwhile. Angry temper, rage. I can't stand not having what I want. Fearful temper, depression. I'll never have what I want in life, therefore I'll never be happy. Angry temper, impatience. I can't wait to get it. I must have it now. Fearful temper, bitterness and self-pity. Nothing good ever happens to me. Nobody even cares. Angry temper, hatred. I hate them for not giving me what I want. And I see this often in families. You know, one person thinks another sibling is richer or something, and they go, they could help me if they want, and they, you know, that kind of anger and hatred. They want something from somebody. Fearful temper, feelings of inferiority. If I were more worthwhile, I'd have achieved what I wanted. Angry temper, guilt, manipulation. They driving me crazy. This will be the death of me. Look at the pain they're causing me by not giving me what I want. I'm going to make them feel bad. And we live in a society where anger's rife and people are victims and everybody's doing everything to them. Anxiety, oi, what if I never get it? Victimization. They could give it to me if they wanted. I'm helpless to get myself out of this bind. Angry temper, nagging, complaining, whining. I'm going to nag until I get it. Blame is fearful temper. It's all their fault that I'm unhappy. Angry temper, excessive use of force. I'm going to make them give me what I want. They only listen when I yell. Jealousy is fearful temper. They have what I want, it eats me up. Shame is fearful temper. I'm so ashamed that I don't have what others have. Judgmentalness or feelings of superiority is angry temper. They bad, inferior, inadequate for doing this. Fearful temper, discouragement, hopelessness, despair. I'll never have what I want, so why should I put forth any effort to get it? Angry temper, justification of abuse. They deserve to be punished. This will teach them a lesson. So this is what happens when we don't get what we want. We can either go, oh, poor me, it's terrible, I never got what I want, and I'm jealous of them who've got, or the angry temper of how dare they could change it, they're doing this to me. And we can do both and at different times. It is healthy to get in the habit of examining your demands objectively. The romantic, irrational, unreasonable demands should be eliminated. Reasonable desires should be dealt with reasonably, not with the excessive emotionalism or sense of emergency which demands imply. So we're not saying if you have a reasonable demand for security, you shouldn't ask for it, right? If you want someone to be consistent or reliable and they make you feel, that's a reasonable demand. But you don't need to be excessively emotional about it, and you don't have to manipulate or be angry. You need to learn how to ask for it or to work towards it if you don't have what you want. But very often we are not reasonable. So I sometimes laugh at Manus Friedman. He was, I don't know which share he was giving, but he was talking about this, where people feel.
Did you say?
Manus Friedman.
Oh.
He was saying that he lives in Minnesota, but he said he saw a big board that was advertising some cream, and it says, "Your skin deserves this cream." And he says, well, we're living in a world where you're told that, and you don't have that cream, well, then it's poor me, or my job should pay me more. What is this? Your skin deserves this cream. And it's a very good example of how people think they've got to have certain things. And I often give these stories. I take it seriously at the time, because I'm not being mean about my clients, but you see how people think. So I've seen sometimes things where I go, that is like, so the one I often talk about, I had this couple and they were buying a new house. This is many years ago. So then, like, a house on the water in Vaucluse was about 25 million. They're now 100 million, I think, or something. But then it was about 25. And I'll never forget, the husband turned and he said, I'm so sorry that I've only got 15 million. I can't buy you that 25 million house. We'll just be one street away from the water. And she had this whole tantrum, and I remember going, just stick to the therapy, because I can't even get my head around what a $15 million house. But to her, she genuinely felt it. But one could probably say it's an unrealistic demand, especially if your husband hasn't got the money, right? He's only got 15 million. And that's what we often do. We're asking someone to give us more than they're capable of giving. So sometimes it's not about money, but we're asking someone to give us more that they're not capable of giving. So we also have to think about, do our husbands, our children, our parents, are we asking something that's reasonable? Maybe they're not able to do it. Maybe it's not in their personality. Maybe whatever. We need to ask, I have a request. Is it a reasonable request? Does it pass the pub test? I like that expression. Now I'm Australian. Okay. So recognize trivialities and free yourself from petty-mindedness. An interesting story is told about Gaon Rav Ephraim Zalman Margolis. He lived from 1762 to 1828. One of his most precious material possessions in his elegant home was a mirror of extraordinary beauty. One day, a servant girl slipped, fell right into the mirror, and smashed it. To his wife, the Rebbitzin Margolis, the loss of this mirror came as a shock, and she could not hold back her tears. Her husband, on the other hand, viewed the scene calmly. Doesn't this great loss affect you at all? She asked. I'll answer your question on some other occasion, replied the Gaon quietly. It seemed that the moment he considered opportune to answer her question was a long time in coming. Each time she asked, the rabbi changed the subject. A full year passed. The matter seemed completely forgotten when suddenly one day the rabbi asked his wife, tell me, what do you say now to the loss of that mirror last year? Oh, that, a kapora, I've long since dismissed it from my memory. She answered calmly. Now the time has come to give you my answer. A year ago, when you stood so angry, so deeply hurt at the loss of that old piece of silvered glass, I pictured to myself how I'd feel about it in a year's time. What you said, I said to myself on that day, and thereby saved myself unnecessary pain. So when you realize what a triviality is, and that's a very good technique to think about, will it be important in a few years' time? I do this with kids, with parenting. I have a lovely thing where parents take it so seriously. And one of the tools is, if you had to video it and show it at your child's wedding in 20 years, would it be funny? Like, it would be hilarious.
Well, then help Andy.
It's so funny that they dropped the water and slipped in it, and but so that's if you can project into the future. Today it feels serious, but actually that helps you monitor. It's not really serious. It doesn't mean you don't teach them to clean up. It doesn't mean that you don't do something, but the emotionalism, that's what we're talking about. Now, new members to Emet are sometimes bothered by the fact that they're asked to relegate the majority of the daily events in their lives to the category of triviality. How can you tell me that those unwashed dishes are a triviality? How can you tell me that the social snub is a triviality? That lost jacket sure doesn't feel like a minor event. The fact is that most of us do not undergo what might be termed major events. Major life changes as marriage, birth, divorce, retirement, job change. Serious transgression of religious or secular law, or danger to our physical or mental well-being. Most of the events we encounter belong in the category of relatively mundane, uncomfortable, frustrating, boring, or irritating trivialities. And that's the truth, that for most of us, unless what the things she's speaking about, like really divorce or death, retirement, job change, serious transgression, or danger, everything else is a triviality. And that's why when we go through something big like Bondi, I find people come into my office all the time and they go, oh, what I'm going to talk about is so banal because of what you've gone through. And that's the truth. I mean, it doesn't bother me, but what I mean by that is when something tragic happens and you look at your own problems, you actually realize, your own self knows, mine is a triviality and that's a life and death. So that's what you say to yourself. This is a problem. Is it life and death? If it's not life and death, it's a triviality. Is it a problem that needs to be solved? Sure. You don't have to live with problems, fix it. But without the drama, because we all know it's life and death, and there isn't. What's difficult now with this, it's interesting, I'm thinking about when this book was written, is that, I think I might have said it at that workshop, now when I'm dealing with people with anxiety, it's much harder to know what is a triviality because of, for example, people talk about the protests and are they safe and are we safe to walk down the street and can our kids go to school, and we now, are we really in danger? Maybe we are, probably we are now that we've had a shooting attack. It's an interesting thing. Until Bondi, we could say in Australia, it's all a trivial, just your anxiety. But now we have got, so it's a bit more tricky for us now as Jews. So you ought to ask yourself, is this a true catastrophe? And how would I feel about this event 20 years from now? And that'll help you. Our reactions to trivialities might feel like a 10 at the moment that they happen. Let's see if there's a good example. When I realized I left the keys in the car and had locked the doors. Can't do that anymore. My car beeps if you leave the car in. It's got all these things. Toothpaste, you can't leave the car. It's amazing, all these inventions. When the clerk told me he had to close up after I waited for 2 hours. When I saw the dentist bill. So all these things that we work ourselves up, we need to actually say, really, it's just a problem that needs to be solved. So you cannot always rely on your initial response to events to get a true picture of the seriousness of the situation. Rather, use an objective means to evaluate the problem so you do not waste valuable time and energy working yourself up over a situation which calls for detachment or calm problem-solving techniques. The more you can detach or just solve it, the more simple your life will come. And you'll all find this. You'll find that you get less upset about everyday things, which doesn't mean you're not solving them. It just means you're not having the drama with them. So sometimes, though, when you have that initial response, you have it. That's why you need to work through it. And then you can say, actually, my response does not meet. This is really a triviality. For example, dishes are meant to be washed, not dramatized. Children's mistakes are to be corrected, not to be made into major issues. And I cannot tell you how many married couples in Australia fight about dishes. It's dishes and packing the dishwasher. I think if I had to do research, the most common things that people complain about, the way one of them packs the dishwasher, and the anger, you put the plate in, I always tell you to put it this way, like, for years they're fighting over it, and the dishes in the sink. I've had people working at how long can you leave dishes in the sink? And some people want to wash up straight away, and some people say, no, it's okay overnight. Somebody wants it 3 days, and they're negotiating how long. And you realize, all this time that is spent. And it's not that it's literally about the dishes. So it's an interesting thing if you're getting worked up to find a solution to it, because there may always be doing. That's what my cousin in Israel always says. Just face reality. If you've got teenagers, there'll all be dishes in the sink. There always will be. So you can fight reality or just face it. Save your emotions and your time for many worthwhile causes and desperate needs of your fellow man, not superficial concerns or minor discomforts. Now, I want to stress, never tell anybody else this, because out of context, if you tell your friend, listen, I went to a share, and what you're moaning about is a triviality, they will feel so upset and gaslit. So we talk about having double standards in the Torah world, standards for ourselves, because we know the concepts. I'm not belittling what you're going through, so you can tell yourself. But if someone is going through a hard time and is crying about the dishwasher, you need to validate their feeling. Always double standards, because they're not doing the learning, so just validate them. Don't gaslight people by telling them, oh, it's nothing. So in Tehillim 119, turn away my eyes from things of no value, that I may live in your ways. We have to know what is valuable. The opposite of a triviality is a priority. Every event involves trivialities and priorities. Our task is to focus on priorities. What is our priorities? Doing Hashem's will, particularly acts of chesed and protecting our own and others' physical and mental well-being. So if you realize Hashem's will is that we're kind and compassionate, and someone has left a dish in the sink, that's an opportunity to say, I'm going to choose to be kind and ask them in a nice way, or I'm going to help them do it, or I'm going to do it in a compassionate way. Even that is living an elevated life. Get in the habit of saying, this situation is a triviality in comparison to my priorities in life, or this is a triviality in comparison to my mental health. So I'll read this one. When my father had to be hospitalized, I found it necessary to give up a number of activities and to bear certain physical discomforts in order to be with him. But all that was trivial in comparison to the mitzvah of kibbud av and the strengthening of a relationship which had been weakened over years from being away from home. Temper tricks us into investing ourselves in meaningless conflicts and insignificant discomforts. So we can rationalize and go, well, anyone would be upset. I love that one when people say, anyone would be upset in this situation, or I deserve it, or I'm entitled to, those kind of words. Maturity demands that a man should separate himself from anything which is not essential. So this is from a book called The Path of the Just. So immaturity is, I've got to have what I want and right now. Maturity is, I separate myself from anything which is not essential. If you experience a strong emotional reaction with possible jittery sensations or heart palpitations, you can tell yourself to focus on your priorities, divert your attention from those aspects of the event over which you have no control. So often we work ourselves up over things we have absolutely no control over. And you just separate it and go, I'm not putting any energy in that. I'm putting my energy into serving Hashem. I'm going to manage my household more calmly, more lovingly, do what I can. On the other hand, since everything in your life has significance, it's important to monitor your reaction to trivialities. The fact you might get upset when you see dust on the shelves or don't get the coverage you wanted from someone in shul is an important indicator of the need to examine your irrational demands, condemnations, and insecure thoughts. So from today, I want you to notice when you have these thoughts. Looking at your response to a triviality is like looking at a drop of blood to get an indication of the condition of your entire body. So if you are having these reactions, it's like looking at a spot of blood that will tell you if you've got an infection or not. It will tell you how you're managing in terms of this. Furthermore, your seemingly excessive reaction to a minor event may be evidence of a profound pain. So she's saying two things. Sometimes it's just because you are overreacting to a triviality and you need to put work in to learn to separate. What is a triviality and where should your energy go? But sometimes it's because you're in profound pain. For example, that small act of forgetfulness on a certain person's part was merely a symptom of what I feel is an unfulfilling relationship. I overreact sometimes to these little things because I lack trust in this person and I feel uncared for. So sometimes a person is angry with their husband because their dish is in the sink. And the relationship is actually a good relationship, but they're a bit of a, what we're talking about, a perfectionist, or it has to be their way, or whatever their reasons are. It's a triviality and you can work on it. But sometimes it is an indicator of something wrong in the marriage. And that's when you have to be aware of it. So you notice, if little things are happening and you're having this irrational response, use it to think about what's going on here. Am I feeling so hurt because actually something really not good? Or actually, am I just being dramatic and immature? Such tip of the iceberg triviality should not be shrugged off as minor any more that one would ignore even the smallest lump that might be the sign of a serious illness, God forbid. So if you keep overreacting or yelling at people or getting upset or feeling like a victim or all the things I read, just take a moment to diagnose what is going on that I'm behaving like this over every little thing or over that little thing. And then you decide which way you're going to go with it. So none of this is going, they don't matter. We're saying your response to it is a temperamental response. I'm not saying you have to live with dirty dishes. I'm saying your response to the dirty dishes needs to be like you're responding to a triviality. It's okay, it's a problem, I'll get it done. Not I'm going to burn the house down and get divorced and call that person names and all the things we do.